Welcome to Hollywood Latest Reports. It was a moment that left the entire congregation silent. During one of his most heartfelt sermons at Family Worship Center, Pastor Loren Larson broke down in tears as he began to speak about his beloved daughter, Larson Brumley. Known for his powerful preaching and passionate teaching of the gospel, Loren showed a side few had ever seen from the pulpit, that of a tender, emotional father deeply moved by the love he holds for his child. As he began to share personal reflections about family and faith, his voice trembled. The sermon wasn't scripted or planned in detail that day. What started as a message about God's grace suddenly turned into a deeply personal testimony about his daughter, aptly named Grace, a reflection of both divine mercy and paternal affection. "I thank God for my daughter every single day," Loren said, pausing for a moment to hold back tears. "She's my princess, my gift from God. Watching her grow into the woman she's become has been one of the greatest blessings of my life." The church fell quiet. Those who were present later described the atmosphere as spiritually heavy, yet beautifully intimate. It wasn't the usual kind of sermon filled with theological exposition or complex biblical interpretation. Instead, it was raw emotion, wrapped in sincerity, delivered by a man whose heart overflowed with gratitude and love. A rare glimpse into a private bond. For years, Loren Larson has been recognized as a respected minister, teacher, and leader within Jimmy Swaggart Ministries. But few moments have ever revealed his personal side as vividly as this one. As he spoke of Grace, he smiled through his tears, recalling her childhood, her passion for music, and her devotion to faith. "Grace has always had this heart for the Lord," Loren shared. "When she sings, it's not just a song, it's a prayer. It's something that touches people because it's real. And that's something you can't teach. It comes from the heart." Members of the congregation nodded, some wiping away their own tears. Many knew the Larson family well, having watched Grace grow up within the ministry. But hearing her father publicly pour his heart out was something deeply special. Loren went on to explain that raising children while being in ministry is not always easy. The constant public attention, the expectations, and the pressure to maintain spiritual consistency can be overwhelming. Yet, he credited God's guidance and Grace's steadfast spirit for helping their family remain strong through every trial. Faith, family, and the power of grace. In the middle of his message, Loren drew a profound connection between his daughter's name and the very essence of Christianity. "When I think about Grace," he said softly, "I'm reminded not just of my daughter, but of the grace that God has shown me, undeserved, unearned, and unending. Every time I call her name, I'm reminded that His grace is real. It's alive in our life." The statement resonated deeply. Listeners later described the moment as one of the most powerful sermons Loren had ever delivered, not because of eloquence, but because of its purity and honesty. Grace herself, who was seated in the audience that day, was visibly emotional. Witnesses say she looked up at her father with tears in her eyes, mouthing the words, "I love you, Dad." It was a moment that transcended words, a connection between father and daughter anchored in faith. Behind the sermon, a father's reflection. In interviews following the service, Loren humbly reflected on why he became so emotional that day. "I didn't plan to talk about Grace," he admitted with a soft laugh. "But sometimes, when you're preaching about God's goodness, you can't help but think of the people in your life who remind you of that goodness every day. For me, that's my daughter. She's a living example of God's grace." He went on to describe how proud he was of her ministry and her ability to touch hearts through music. Larson Brumley, known for her soulful gospel performances, has long been a staple voice at Family Worship Center, captivating audiences with her passionate renditions of songs about faith and redemption. "Every time she sings," Loren said, "I see God's hand at work. She's got this gift, a gift I never take for granted." The congregation's response. Following the sermon, social media was flooded with clips and comments from church members and online viewers. Many expressed how touched they were by Loren's vulnerability and openness. "It's not often you see a pastor show that level of emotion from the pulpit," one viewer wrote. "Loren reminded us that even spiritual leaders are human, fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters, all touched by the same love and pain we experience." Others praised the way he intertwined personal experience with biblical truth. One commenter said, "When Loren spoke about grace, he wasn't just talking about his daughter. He was showing us the beauty of God's grace through his own life story. A message beyond words." Loren's sermon that day wasn't just about his relationship with Grace. It became a broader message about the importance of cherishing loved ones and expressing love while we still can. He urged the congregation not to take family for granted, reminding everyone that time is fleeting. Tell your children you love them, he said earnestly. Don't wait for a perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. Those words lingered long after the service ended. Some parents reportedly went home that evening and called their own children, inspired by Loren's message. Others shared the video clip with family members as a reminder of the power of love and forgiveness, the legacy of love and faith. Over the years, Loren and Grace have stood side by side on numerous occasions, preaching, singing, and sharing the message of Christ's redemption. But this sermon felt different. It wasn't just ministry, it was fatherhood in its truest form. Observers noted that the bond between Loren and Grace exemplifies what many Christian families aspire to, a connection grounded in faith, respect, and unconditional love. Watching my daughter serve God brings me more joy than anything else in this world, Loren concluded during his sermon. She's not just my daughter, she's my reminder that God's promises are true. As the final words echoed through the sanctuary, the audience rose to their feet in quiet reverence. The moment transcended performance. It was worship through love, the kind that only a father's heart could fully express, a moment to be remembered. In the days that followed, Loren's sermon continued to circulate online, touching thousands around the world. Viewers from different countries commented on how his vulnerability brought them closer to understanding the heart of God. One message read, "Pastor Loren showed us that love for family and love for God are intertwined." His tears were a sermon of their own. For Loren Larson, it wasn't about going viral or being remembered for a single sermon. It was about being authentic, showing that even a man of great faith can break down when speaking about something as pure as the love for his daughter. In the days following Loren Larson's emotional sermon, the impact of his words began to spread far beyond the walls of the family worship center. Clips of his message circulated across social media, drawing in both longtime followers of the ministry and newcomers who had never heard of him before. The reaction was overwhelming. People from different corners of the world commented about how Loren's love for his daughter reminded them of their own families, their own children, and most importantly, their own relationship with God. What made the sermon stand out wasn't simply its emotional intensity. It was the genuine vulnerability that Loren showed in front of his congregation, something not often seen from a pulpit. Pastors, by the nature of their role, are often expected to be pillars of strength, guiding others through their struggles while keeping their own emotions in check. But on that day, Loren reminded everyone that true strength often lies in honest emotion and in the willingness to show one's heart. As many viewers pointed out online, Loren wasn't just preaching a sermon, he was living out one. The way he spoke about grace, the tears in his eyes, and the conviction in his voice painted a picture of what unconditional love looks like when expressed through both faith and family. A father's journey through faith and parenthood. In a later conversation shared by ministry members, Loren reflected more deeply on what it truly means to be a father. He talked about how, when Grace was born, he instantly knew she would play a major role in shaping his life and faith. When I first held her, Loren recalled, I remember thinking, this is what Grace feels like. Not just her name, but the reality of God giving you something you could never deserve on your own. That's what parenthood does. It teaches you the love of God in a way that nothing else can. Those who know Loren personally say that he has always been a devoted father. Despite his busy schedule, teaching at Jimmy Swaggart Bible College, preaching at Family Worship Center, and traveling for ministry, he made it a priority to stay close to his children. Grace, being one of his most visible children due to her musical role in the ministry, has often spoken about how her father's guidance shaped her life and career. In an older interview, Grace once said, "My dad has always told me that singing is not just about sound, it's about soul. He taught me that every song is a message, and every message should point people toward Jesus." That same philosophy seemed to echo back through Loren's sermon when he talked about watching his daughter serve in ministry. It wasn't just a proud father admiring his child's accomplishments, it was a man acknowledging the faithfulness of God across generations, generational faith, and the beauty of legacy. The Larson family has long been known for their involvement in Christian ministry. Loren himself has been part of Jimmy Swaggart Ministries for decades, serving not only as a preacher, but also as a teacher and musician. To see his daughter continuing that legacy is something he holds close to his heart. During the sermon, Loren made a statement that deeply resonated with listeners. When you see your children walking in the truth, when you see them loving God, that's the reward of every sleepless night, every prayer, and every moment of doubt you ever had as a parent. This line alone drew emotional reactions from many parents watching live. They understood that raising children in faith isn't always simple. There are seasons of rebellion, misunderstanding, or distance, but the hope of seeing them come back to God keeps every believing parent praying. Loren's words became a reflection of that universal struggle, the joy and heartbreak that come with parenthood. He continued, "Grace's faith isn't mine, it's hers. I prayed for her, yes. I taught her, yes. But the relationship she has with God now is something she built on her own. That's what makes it so special. That's why I'm proud. Not just because she's my daughter, but because she's his." That statement became one of the most quoted lines from the sermon, shared widely on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. It wasn't just a message about his daughter. It was a profound truth about spiritual independence and personal faith, the power of vulnerability in ministry. Many ministry leaders and viewers commented afterward that Loren's openness set an important example for pastors everywhere. Too often, church leaders hide their emotions behind layers of formality, afraid that being vulnerable might make them appear weak. But Loren's emotional honesty had the opposite effect. It strengthened his connection with the people he leads. In a follow-up devotional posted on the ministry's website, Loren wrote, "Ministry isn't about perfection. It's about connection. If your heart can't connect with the people you serve, you'll never truly reach them. Jesus himself wept when he saw others in pain. If the Son of God could show his tears, then so can we." This reflection only deepened the respect that many already had for him. Loren's ability to balance theology with empathy, truth with tenderness, and conviction with compassion is what sets him apart as a teacher and leader. The sermon also reignited conversations about the importance of emotional authenticity in modern Christian life. In a world where social media often encourages people to hide behind filters and perfect appearances, Loren's tearful moment on stage reminded believers that God meets us in our real, raw humanity, not in our perfection. Grace's response and family reaction. Grace Larson Brumley later shared a short statement on her own social media, thanking everyone for their kind messages and expressing how much her father's words meant to her. She wrote, "I'll never forget that day. Hearing my dad talk about me that way was overwhelming, but it also reminded me of how blessed I am to have parents who taught me the love of Jesus. My dad's faith has always inspired me, and seeing him get emotional made me realize once again how real his love, and God's love, truly is." Fans flooded her post with supportive comments, sharing how the sermon touched their hearts. Some even mentioned that it inspired them to rebuild relationships with their own families. Her husband, Skylar Brumley, also expressed gratitude for Loren's words, saying that the sermon beautifully captured the heart of their family, faith, humility, and love. "That's what makes the Larsons who they are," he said. "They live what they preach, an enduring message that lives on." Weeks later, people were still talking about Loren's message. Churches across the country used clips from his sermon in their own services. It became more than just a viral moment. It turned into a teaching tool about family, grace, and the meaning of love in Christian life. Loren, however, stayed humble through it all. "I didn't do anything special," he said in a later interview. "I just spoke from my heart. If that helps someone else see the goodness of God, then that's all that matters." To this day, many describe that sermon as one of the most moving moments in Family Worship Center history. It wasn't about theology or doctrine. It was about the living heart of a father who understands what grace really means, both as a concept and as a person.